If I were to say this, if I was as bigoted in my perspective of Ben Shapiro's relationship, I'd be like, dude with a silly hat on who believes that it has magical powers, meets some girl probably with curly hair. They seem to like each other or whatever, but they don't bang. They date for like 6 months. Then they get married. Then they bang. And then they have 2 little kids because they banged. And I guess they like raised them or whatever. Is that an accurate representation of Ben Shapiro's relationship with his wife and his family? It's not at all. The show The Last of Us has come out on HBO. It's been a big hit. It's based on a video game. I didn't play the video game. I don't have PlayStation. I have an Xbox. I would love to play the video game, though. I hope they release it on Xbox. That would be cool. It seems like right up my alley. I like the zombie shows if they're done right. It's a little bit tired, but the way they went about it with The Last of Us, with the cordyceps and how it's something that cordyceps do in ants is kind of hijack their body, and it's really crazy, right? It's a wild thing. It's a cool concept. It's a different concept for a zombie show. And here's what I like. And here's the thing about what I like in shows, right? And I'll just give you my inherent bias. I don't like black and white, good and evil, right? I don't like it in belief systems. That's why I struggle with Christianity, the idea that like God is good and Satan is bad, and like these clear bad, good and bad. It's like black, white. It's like, that doesn't have enough nuance for me. I think God is good and bad, and the devil is good and bad. If you're going to really look at it and challenge yourself to that perspective, in the same way, if you look at a lot of the way the Greeks kind of went about it, and even the Norse mythology after that, there are parts of all of these Greek gods within us, right? Their personality traits, and they're very nuanced. Like Zeus was very powerful and did a lot of good. Also was like a kind of a slutty, greedy asshole. Right? It's like there's all these. Everything has a shadow. So to believe that something is like pure black or pure white is just absurd to me. It doesn't resonate with me. And I don't like that in stories. That's why I liked Game of Thrones, the books more so than the show, because the show went to shit at the end there. It was like a Michael Bay movie at the end. It's like everything's morally gray, right? You can take somebody like Jaime Lannister, and in the books it's even better, and take this guy who you just think is a giant piece of shit and start to build sympathy for him over time and like have this crazy redemption arc. That's just being able to do that and emotionally be captivated by a show is interesting to me. And there's a deeper story there than what's being told, what you're seeing, right? The emotions in a show or a movie or a book or a story is something, one, we have like a deep, I think in our DNA, we have a deep connection to stories. That's how come we have the religions we have and the beliefs we have. Like there's something really like Joseph Campbell-esque there. Like there's something that we resonate with in stories. And I think that's the whole thing, show don't tell, right? When it comes to movies and stories and books, like it's really, let the viewer, right, the consumer of this content, feel what they're going to feel based on their experience and what they're bringing to it. And you show them, you give them the opportunity to feel. And I love that. When lots of things like Cormac McCarthy's book, Blood Meridian, I just finished that just the other day. And I read that because, one, he wrote No Country for Old Men, which is an incredible movie. I'm going to read that book. And the movie, The Road, if you've seen it, but the book is better. The book, The Road, was one of the most captivating reads I've ever read in my life. It was just it's so incredibly well written. Like he can make the darkest landscape beautiful, and it's I've just never seen somebody use words like that. Like it's something that it baffles me how well he can write. Cormac McCarthy, just next level. Blood Meridian is a lot. It's really, really challenging. I wouldn't recommend it for everybody, to be honest with you. But The Road is just, it's fantastic. But there's something about that, right? There's like this, it's telling a deeper story, and the emotion that it elicits from you is a huge part of the story. So that brings us to The Last of Us, which is at the end of the day, a story not about zombies and not about necessarily even the characters that the protagonists of the show, right? It's bigger than that, right? The fungus is just doing what fungus does. It's a manifestation of life. Why we perceive it, right? We perceive it as the bad guy, the enemy, right? In the same way that the way that I Am Legend was supposed to end, right, was that Will Smith's character, they had 2 endings. Will Smith's character realizes that he's the bad guy. That these what we see as monsters are just trying to live, and he's kidnapping them. And they have feelings in their own way that we don't understand. In the same way that mushrooms are intelligent and we don't understand them, Right now, because American audiences can't handle that kind of nuance and that kind of complexity in a story, they made it what it was at the end of I Am Legend, which was waters down the entire movie and makes it something way shallower than it needed to be. But when we look at the whole thing and think about what it could have been, with the idea of like Will Smith having the realization that he's the bad guy in this situation and he needs to vacate the premises and get the fuck out of there, that's a deeper story. That makes you think a little bit. And so with The Last of Us, it's really a story about how much humans need each other, need connection, need love, right? Your protagonist loses his daughter tragically at the beginning of this whole pandemic thing, closes himself off, right? And then finds a new way to love after all of this pain, right? With someone else, with a girl that needs someone like him. That's the story. It's not about zombies and shooting zombies in the face and all other shit. And how much how basic that is to who we are. So we're going to listen to Ben Shapiro talk about episode 3, which deviated. It was kind of a little side quest on The Last of Us show. And look at how he does it. Like, it's so fucking annoying and disgusting. I'm gonna let you guys do it for yourself here. Listen to it for yourself. And we're on a tangent here. I don't give a shit. I've needed to do this for a while. Let's go. Let's just get into what Ben Shapiro has to say about The Last of Us episode 3. And I'll let him describe it to you, because let's give him a chance.
Okay, time for a thing that I hate. Okay, so we are going to steer into some dicey waters here. I'm about to criticize an episode of the TV show, The Last of Us. So I'm going to say right up front, HBO's The Last of Us, right? This is the one that stars Pedro Pascal. And it's really well produced, written by Craig Mazin, who's a super talented guy. He's the one who is behind Chernobyl. Okay, so first, the things about this series that are good. And again, preface, I've never played the game. So don't care about the...
Okay, so hasn't played the game that this is based off of. But hasn't played the game. I haven't either. But I took the time to do, before I start criticizing something, I want to see, what is it built off of? What are the bones of this, right? Because I do want it to be loyal to the source material. And I think that's really important. You can't just take IP and just rejig it in the way that you want to. If you're going to use original IP, then tell the story it told or create new IP. Continue.
The game. Don't care about how true it is to the game. There are lots of gamers out there. You want to watch their videos on the correlation between the game and the show. That's fine. I'm just watching it as a piece of pure TV entertainment. Okay, I'm coming from, I don't care what's canon. I don't care what's not canon.
How can you not care what's canon? They just want to, you want to call it The Last of Us and then just do a completely different story, and that wouldn't bother you? The last 2 seasons of Game of Thrones didn't bother you? That doesn't make any sense, right? So he's like, well, this is just a time for me to vent about something that has nothing to do with this show. That's what he's saying, right? If we really break it down, that is what he is saying.
Just coming at it from the view of a TV viewer, so I'm just going to say that right up front. That is not my particular purview. I don't play video games because I'm not a child.
Watch this.
I know. I'm just joking. Lots of good people play video games. Okay, in any case.
He just realized that a bunch of incels that play a lot of video games watch his shit, and he checked himself.
Including Andrew Clavin, who's a mediocre person. Anyway, The Last of Us is for those who haven't seen it, it is a zombie show. Okay, it's a show about a zombie apocalypse that essentially arises because fungi go viral, essentially, and take over people's brains and turn them into zombies. That is the premise of the show. And it's really well produced, and it's beautifully shot, and it's really well scripted, and all the rest. So the first 2 episodes are about Pedro Pascal finding, again, some of this is sort of hackneyed trope, but he is introduced to the other main character, who is a young girl. The young girl is, for some reason, immune to the zombie virus. And so the question is, can he get her to a place where presumably they are going to try to manufacture a cure from her? Right? That's where the show is going, I would assume, because any other place doesn't make any sense. So it is this character, Joel, and this character, Ellie, and they are navigating the zombie apocalypse. And then we get to, so that's the first couple episodes. And they're good. They're really compelling. Again, really well made, really well written. And then we get to episode 3. And this, according to the media, is the single greatest episode of television that has ever been. If you read the headlines on episode 3, this is the most important thing that has ever happened in the history of television. CNN, The Last of Us just made an early claim to one of the best TV episodes of 2023. The Last of Us viewership soars 12% to a new series high with heartbreaking episode 3. It's historic. It's important. Okay, guys, it's historic and important. Now, why is it historic and important? It's historic and important because it's about two gay dudes.
Okay, so I'll say this. It was a really good episode of TV. And to say it's one of the best of 2023 so far, it's February. So like that doesn't really mean that much. And TV has set a pretty low bar. I think that the undue kind of virtue signally praise is kind of annoying, right? Because the show hasn't gone anywhere yet. It was a good episode of TV. It told the full story in itself. But at the same time, people jumped on it to take advantage of it and you know what I'm saying? Like just do their whole song and dance because it was about two gay guys, right? But it really wasn't about two gay guys. It was about two people. And the show isn't really about zombies, right? So you see how the whole thing is like, if that's the level of depth that you have when you ingest a story, why in the fuck are you talking about stories, right? Like I am passionate about narrative structure and character development. I think it's fucking cool. I think it says a lot about the human condition. I think we learn a lot about ourselves through stories, right? I get a lot of this from Jordan Peterson, honestly, and breakdowns from the Song of Ice and Fire books. Like this, Cormac McCarthy's The Road, another good example in Blood Meridian as well. Like they tell you about you, right? If you can't see that in a story, then you have no business reviewing fucking shows. What the fuck are you doing, bro? I mean, you're just using this as a catapult so you can put The Last of Us in your title and get attention for what, not liking gay folks? Let's continue.
That's why. So the essential plot of this episode, which is the problem with this episode. And again, you want to make Brokeback Zombie Farm or whatever, fine. But the problem with this episode is that it absolutely does not advance the plot in any way and actually has no consequences. So the entire plot of the episode is that Ron Swanson, Nick Offerman, but he actually plays Ron Swanson, but Ron Swanson who likes to nail dudes. So Ron Swanson, a libertarian who hates the government and lives in his basement and is a prepper, but also is gay. Ron Swanson, during the zombie apocalypse, he's having himself a grand old time. For some reason, his town is completely not hit by any of the zombies at all. It's like completely left alone. And so he goes out and he gets all of his resources, and then he builds a nice fence around his place, and he sets up all of these booby traps. So if anybody shows up, whether they're raiders, whether they're zombies, they're going to get killed. And then somehow another dude ends up like falling into one of his traps, and they meet, and they bang, and they end up becoming a couple. Okay, so you can see it here, right? There's gay Ron Swanson. And it's complete with like sex scenes and the whole thing.
Okay. So let's do that. And this might get a little bit uncomfortable for some of you guys, but like, so the way he's portraying this, right? So it's like Ron Swanson is a prepper, right? Which he was. And this guy lived alone. He catches a guy in a trap. True. Yes. These are things that happen. He doesn't comply with the orders to go. These people end up getting killed. The people that live in this town, they'll end up getting executed on the side of the street because that's safer for them because the quarantine zones were full. This like Fedra authoritarian government, which I'm sure Ben would be in favor of. that's a low blow, but you know what I'm saying. They're kind of taking control of this whole situation and using this chaos to their advantage. So yeah, that's one way to look at it. They bang and they become a couple. Now, if I were to say this, if I was as bigoted in my perspective of Ben Shapiro's relationship, I'd be like, dude with a silly hat on, who believes that it has magical powers, meets some girl probably with curly hair, and they seem to like each other or whatever, but they don't bang. They date for like 6 months, then they get married, then they bang, and then they have 2 little kids because they banged, and I guess they like raised them or whatever. Is that an accurate representation of Ben Shapiro's relationship with his wife and his family? No, it's not at all. That's not at all. Because what was going on is that Ron Swanson's character, Nick Offerman's character, was so familiar with being alone that he was happier when everybody was gone. He was so familiar with being alone. He had never had a connection with somebody He had never really loved someone else outside of his mother who had died. He was so alone that he was more comfortable and happier when everybody else was dead or a zombie. And then somebody happened to come into his life who saw him for who he was. And for the first time in his life, in the weirdest of circumstances, in the strangest of circumstances, he finds love and knows what it's like to be loved and all that goes with it, and the fights and and all this other shit, right? And that's something. Like, that tells you a story about humanity, a deeper story than two gay dudes banging. Let's continue.
And the entire episode has no zombies, no real threat, and it is about two gay dudes who meet and have a relationship in which one grows strawberries for the other, and then they die.
So I'm going to say this is, if I was to do the same thing, let's do the same thing here. About Ben Shapiro and his wife. So it's a couple of Jews, and one of them talks about news on the internet, and she can't sing at the church because the Jews don't like that. Does that feel good for anybody? Doesn't feel good for me.
But not being killed by zombies or under threat. One dies, he gets cancer, and he decides to essentially euthanasia himself. And gay Ron Swanson decides that he is also going to commit suicide at the same time, because Romeo and Juliet, or Romeo and Romeo in this particular case. This show could have this entire episode could have taken place completely without a zombie apocalypse. It just would have been
They would have lived in a town with no one else, and raiders would have come. Like, there was the whole fucking point is that they're alone, dude. The whole point is that they're alone. How do you not, like, you have to have such a shallow and intentionally retarded way of looking at this show to see it the way that Shapiro sees it here. And it upsets me because I'm like, dude, you're better than that. Like, I think sometimes I get so frustrated because I actually want better for people. Like, I would like for this asshole to do better. He's got 5.35 million subscribers on YouTube. I would like for him to do better. But Jesus, man. Like, what are we doing here? Why? What is in this for you? You know, I asked myself that with so many people. Get so worked up on so many things, and people come at me for shit, and I'm like, listen, and I do it too, by the way. This is me recognizing my own projection here. What do you get out of this? That's what I've been asking myself. Like, what do you get out of this? Why? Is it fun for you? And that's the thing. At this point, I'm like, why don't you start calling gay people faggots? Just start calling them faggots. Would that feel good for you? Would that feel? Do you need that in your life? You know what I mean? Is that where we need to go? Where it's like you can sit around with your cigars in your little fucking gay ass like safe space at the Daily Wire with your leather chairs, and you could just call gay folks faggots? Is that what you want to do? And cheer each other on? Because if you would bring this shit anywhere outside of your own little safe space bubble at the Daily Wire, you would get fucking clowned, dude. I'm an asshole on the internet, okay? I think I've got 500 subscribers on YouTube because I got my channel shut down over COVID bullshit, which you didn't stand up for, by the way, you fucking pussy. Anyways, this whole deal, I could clown you on this. It's not that hard to disassemble your argument here and just show how bad faith lowbrow this is. And it's upsetting. It's like, dude, do you not understand what you're doing by doing this? Do you not understand at all? They made it wasn't even, there was no set. They kissed like once in the whole fucking episode. It wasn't about that. Can you not see people as people? Can you not see people as fucking people? And then when somebody says something like Jews like money, you're going to go cry and get your fucking panties in a bunch. It's a good show, okay? It's not woke. Those are all, everything that happened in that show was subtly implied. It deviated from the game in some ways, but like from what I understand, those that was kind of implied in the game. And I've seen scenes from the game that pretty clear they had a romantic thing going on. The ending of it is different, and Nick Offerman's character doesn't play a continuing role in the game. But just like that, in episode 4, wasn't really about Joel either and Ellie. It was about Henry and his little brother and their situation and other stuff that's going on, which tells a completely different story about love and commitment and sacrifice. It tells a bigger story. tells a deeper story. And if people don't want to see that, and in many things, right? What are you even doing this for? Are you grifting, bro? Are you grifting? Because it seems a lot like a fucking grift. It seems like you're just emotionally manipulating people for money so you can sell ads to a VPN.